and
Yeah.
just kind of go through the agenda, the items today, and we'll enjoy the meeting today and listen and learn. I think we have a few folks on the. I see Wendy.
I thought I seen Randy too.
Oh, Randy, good morning, Randy and Wendy and Becky and Renee and myself. You know, that's a good group, right?
Enough to make a group.
Yeah, this makes us a good group, man. You know.
Happy Friday to everyone.
Yeah, good morning, Becky. How are you?
Oh, just living the dream.
Oh, I bet you are.
I haven't quite figured out what the dream is. Nightmare, dream, fantasy, something.
Yeah, well. Hey, today, Becky, we can remind Dustin to sign that. Actually, have him sign both because it's after. Or
Yeah.
would it be better if he was sign them tomorrow and send it in?
Or even this afternoon. Whatever we can do to just get him, so we can get him paid.
Yeah, you know, I just don't want to have accounting say that. Well, this is the day, blah blah blah. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to make sure that date is cleared.
Oh yeah.
You know, so maybe we could ask him to submit both of them tomorrow.
Right.
Okay. Let me put a little note to myself on that. Well, I think we have a few new folks. I think. It's almost about that time. And I think Dustin will be coming on soon.
Miss Becky, Dustin just sent me his signed invoices, so I'll forward them to you.
Okay. Good morning, Eddie. Is Dustin on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. Thank you. Hey, Dustin, we're taking care of the invoices,
Yeah, that's cool.
and today I think that could be signed tomorrow because I want to make sure it clears the state.
Okay.
And the one for last month, that should be going through the channel. But we kind of skipped you.
That's all right.
we skipped your signature, so everybody else signed except you. So we
I
had to
don't I
start
don't
the
know how
process.
to I haven't figured out how to sign electronically. It just goes all wacky on my side, so I just print them and sign them.
Oh, and then you scan it, right?
Yeah, I scan 'em.
Okay, yeah, that's I guess Becky, you can jump in on this, or Renee jump in on this where that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. And Renee just forwarded me the 2 documents that you signed, and they look good. So I'll go ahead and get those going. So if accounting has any questions, I'll see if I can run interference there and get it all taken care of for you.
Okay. Well, all sounds great. I hope everybody's having a good day so far. It's a Friday night football for high school kids.
That's right.
Friday for the rest of us is rest up for the weekend.
Hey, I have a real quick question. This is Randy White. Hello.
Sure.
Hey, my mentor, Nakoa, would like to join the meeting, and
You
she's
bet.
joining, but I just don't know if she's sitting in a weight room or not. I sent her the link, so she has that. I just didn't know if something needs to be done on your end to get her into the meeting, because she'd love to be there for the training.
Yeah, that's no problem.
I don't know who does that, if it's Renee or...
It's well, Renee's our
Yeah,
person
if
to
you
go
sent
to.
her the link, she should be able to just click on that link.
It's just saying connecting, and it's not connecting her, so I didn't know if there was a weight room or something that she's stuck in.
Mm-mm.
Would it be that
There's
maybe
not.
you hadn't sent her email an official invite?
If her name is not on the list of email contacts, she won't get the invitation.
Okay, let me get in here.
Okay.
Can you tell me her email?
Yes, it's Nakoa, Nakoa,
Hold on. Nakoa.
Barker, Barker.
Get that last part.
So Barker, Barker.
Okay.
At jordandistrict.org.
Okay. Okay, I just sent her an official invite. That should let her in.
Awesome, thank you.
Certainly. Would you like her added to the list?
Yeah, I think so. If she would like to attend,
Okay.
and she's part of that Jordan School District team. So
Okay, great.
okay, it's 5 after, and what we'll do is we'll get started. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody here today, and if there's anybody new out there, if you could just say your name and the place that you represent, and we'll go through the items after that. Okay, there's nobody new. Everybody knows each other. So again, this is a new tomorrow, if you will, with all our virtual meetings this year so far. And there are a few things that number 2, I'm going to start out by, being grateful, grateful for things that we have around us, and our families and children, grandchildren, and community and folks that you are your colleagues and, people who are around you. And if you look at the agenda, the next item there is, being thankful. I think we have a lot of items and things that we need to be thankful for, and we're thankful for those items. And again, I think we're a blessed people. That when we are a blessed people, we take care of that blessing. And as we take care of that blessing, we move in a really good, sound direction. And today I'd like to pay tribute to the veterans. I know that the Veterans Day was just a few days ago, and in my mind, I know of people who are veterans from way back, and some veterans that are just recently. And I'm thankful for all the veterans and what they do and what they have accomplished. And just around the corner, we take the holiday of Thanksgiving. I think again we have a lot of things to be thankful for and grateful for, and being blessed by that. And some of the Thanksgiving activities, oftentimes prior, there's the family structure, bringing everybody together and being thankful for each other. There's times that you go down to the park, before they're eating festivities. They'll have football games played against each other, and so on and so forth. And of course, that afternoon you have a long list of football games and so on and so forth. So some of those are just kind of the activities, and I think we've moved through a lot of historical events from the time of 1492 and up to this date. Things have changed, and again, those things have changed according to the lifestyle that we live. So, I'm just going to take everybody to, I'm just going to say a moment of silence and prayer and, self-reflection. And again, being grateful, being thankful for and blessed. And, to remember the veterans and the holiday coming up next week and next month. So let's just have a moment of silence, and then we'll go from there. Okay, thank you. If you could,
Sorry, we're taking a moment of silence.
I'm sorry. Okay, if we could, Renee, if you could put up the agenda, you or Becky, put up the agenda, and what we'll do is we'll walk through
my
the
mic
agenda
is
today.
on. Didn't know my mic was on.
Yeah, we heard your thoughts.
Yeah.
Now, the agenda. We again, we're very, very grateful for Dustin to present to our group again professional development that he's provided for us. And I think each time that we go through the professional development, we pick up something new and we apply it to our surroundings, and sometimes that's a reflection of what we do in terms of developing our programs and our personalities. And number 4 is that these are updates, and we're going to have a conversation that Brenda Byu brought up an issue that has it's out there, but I think as we get through number 4, we'll kind of have that conversation there. And number 5 is basically updates from the Urban Indian Center. I've had communication with Penelope, and she wanted to become a little bit more involved as far as updates, because I think that's the hub for a lot of the families in the area. And then we're going to adjourn for the day, and So let's turn the time over to Dustin. Dustin, again, thank you for providing this opportunity for us. And
Yeah,
you're on.
thanks for having me. Hey, I'm gonna try to share my screen. Yeah, so
Okay.
if you could unshare your screen, see if we can get
Okay.
this to work. Um, uh, Renee, could you remove the agenda?
Like,
Okay, let me see if this works. Maybe not. Maybe it
If
won't.
if
I sent my stuff to Becky yesterday, so
okay.
maybe she can
Hey
share my.
Becky, maybe you could you help us out here?
Chuck, did Dusty click the little arrow in the white box?
I did. It's
Okay.
just unresponsive.
I just tried it too, and it looks like it's blocked for some reason.
Oh yeah, so we need to have sharing privileges or something.
Okay.
Usually that's automatic on Teams, but oh, there,
Okay.
look at that.
There
There
it
it
is.
is.
Hey,
Yeah.
could you go to Start Slideshow? Or go to Slideshow and then hit from beginning? Oh, that gives you the wrong screen. Hey, let's go back. No, we're okay. Let's just use that if that's the way it is. All right. So I usually do this to help people understand a little bit more with the native students they're working with. I was, if you can make it one big screen instead of the next slide also
Okay.
while I'm talking. They I you know I was on a panel up at the University of Utah. Thank you. And the panel discussed a lot of things, almost all things Indian, but it ended up getting to it got to a point where we were um, discussing things we're grateful for too, and and I just remember I was being interviewed once, and the person interviewing me asked me if you could meet your ancestors, if you could meet all those people that came before you, what would you say to them? And my thing was, I said I would say thank you. You know, it couldn't have been easy to live the life that they did, right? I, sometimes I complain about the things going on with me, but I have running water, I have electricity now, I have a college education, and so I understand that the choices that those that came before me made probably had me in mind, probably had my family, my mother and my father in mind. And as hard as things are for Native people today, and as rough as federal Indian policy and current Indian law is, but for our ancestors, it probably would have been a lot worse, And so I'm grateful for all that they have preserved, all that they have shared with me, and all that I can share with my family now. They at the panel at University of Utah, they brought up missing and murdered Indigenous women, and they asked, what would we, what as if there are future educators in this room, what should we know about that? And I said, well, one thing you should know is that the statistics that affect, or the statistics that we have on missing and murdered Indigenous women are outstanding, right? They're outrageous. And chances are, if you have a Native student in your class, they've probably been affected by MMIW concerns. And you really should take time to understand that and read about it and recognize that for your students that are there. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more as this moves on. But this is a little quiz. You can take it to yourself. You can tell me how many you get right at the end. It's meant for fun too, but I try to make it fun. There'll be some tough ones in here, but we'll get by. Just as better understanding your native students. All right, so let's go to the first slide. Which of the following are common ingredients in fry bread? Anyone can answer. You can answer. You guys can open up all your mics and start yelling out answers.
Okay, flour, water, baking powder, and salt. No sugar.
Anybody else?
F, all of the above.
Anybody else? All right. I think we covered pretty much all of them. Depends on where you're from, right? I grew up with the first answer, everything but sugar. But I married into all of the above. So it really depends on what on where you're at and what you're working with. I've had some, like my in-laws, they're Sioux, Assiniboine, and they put sugar in their fry bread, which was a little odd to me because I wasn't used to it, and I was dipping it in some soup, right? And it was like I had a salty soup and then I had a sweet fry bread, so it kind of threw me off for a little bit there. But I've also had I was living with some Kiowa people one summer, and they make a really dense fry bread. I mean, they made a taco, right? And it was only like 6 inches in diameter. And I was like, man, I'm a big boy. I can probably eat like 4 of these because they're just so small. But they were like 1.5 inches thick, and there was no air in that. That was just like solid dough, man. And I swear I could wring out the grease with it. But everybody makes fry bread a little different in what they use. So just know that, okay? Don't be critical. All right. Next. Let's go to the next one. Who is this? Anybody?
Senator from Kansas?
Not a senator, but she's from Kansas.
Congressman.
Yeah.
Congresswoman.
Sharice Davis.
Sharice Davids, yay! Yes, she's Ho-Chunk Menominee Congresswoman out of Kansas / MMA fighter. She was one of the first Native women elected to Congress with the other one I won't mention because that other picture's coming up too. So yes, good job. Why do you think this is important? Why would this be important to Native students that you teach with?
Positive role models.
Absolutely. Right. I remember my role models were a little different growing up, but I remember all my Native role models that I had, and it meant something to me, you know. And there'll be a couple of them show up within this quiz, and yeah, positive role models, letting you know that you can do this too, right? There's some Anthony Hopkins movie, I can't remember what it's called, but he says a line in it where he's with Alex Baldwin, or yeah, I think so, and they're trying to survive, and Baldwin's character he's just falling apart, and he's like, I don't know if I can do this, and Anthony Hopkins goes to him, what one man can do, another man can do. And I always remembered that, and so when I see Native people accomplishing things, I remind my kids that, hey, what one person can do, another person can do, you know, and so don't feel like you can't. If you work hard enough, there's so much you can accomplish, and to have Native role models like this in government, in Congress even, is a wonderful thing for our students. Let's go to the next one. Which is the proper term for Native people? Go ahead. You can do this, guys.
Ask. Just ask.
All right, I got just ask. Who else?
Well, Native American, and then like with all of the federal documents, they always say American Indian. So A and B.
ABC.
ABC. Just ask. Yeah, we'll eliminate D and E. But yeah, everything else, I think use your audience. I have to answer this question a lot when I speak in public. A lot of people say, what terms should I use? And usually the terms that I provide for them, I say, well, yeah, I'll use in my classes at UVU, I'll use Native American, American Indian, Indigenous or Indian, or sometimes if I'm speaking about a particular tribe, I'll just say the name of the tribe over and over again. Normally, when I go speak somewhere and I can't tell, I'm having a hard time reading the room, I will ask the MC or the person, my point of contact at that conference, say, hey, we're here. What's the accepted term here where I'm speaking at? And what should I be using? There's some Native American studies conferences out there, and they use Native American. And I've gone to one that's an American Indian Studies conference where they use American Indian, and then I've hung out with a bunch of natives and they call each other Indians. So I would say just ask and try to figure that out. But if you're speaking to a bunch of Navajos, I would just say Navajo or Diné, try to figure that out. But when I teach, I use all of them. I use all of them because I want my students to know that, like Ms. Whitehorse said, depending on what you're doing, you may see all of these at some point. You may see Native American and a lot of sociological studies or in educational studies, but in legislation and Supreme Court cases, you're probably going to see American Indian an awful lot. So just be aware that they're referencing the same people when they're used like this. C is a little more ambiguous because in America, right, we have East Indian cultures here also. So just be aware of your surroundings, I guess. Let's go to the next one. What are some terms used? All right, let me rephrase this question. What did Native Americans call themselves who lived in America before Europeans arrived?
None of the above.
That's right. So getting back to the previous question, right? And you're gonna have Native people argue about the previous question, right? They'll say, no, I mean we're doing it because of this, we're doing it because of this. I was reading a John Trudell book. He was an activist in the 60s and until he passed a few years ago. And he has a quote, he basically saying they have Indian people arguing about whether Native American or American Indian is correct, when in reality, we're older than both concepts. Every tribe has their own word for themselves, and they have words for their native neighbors, and so this is probably something we shouldn't argue too much about as Native people. And we're older than both of those concepts. He says we are the people, we are the human beings, and and that's something that we should focus on, and that's what he says. But yeah, all these terms shown here are terms that have been applied to Native people, but not necessarily they're not necessarily terms that were created by Native people. All right, let's go to the next one. Which is the original res dog?
Okay.
All right. If you don't get it, so I threw the hot dog in a fry bread because that could be a res dog, right? But the three-legged dog is usually a very familiar sight. Where on most reservations. We had one at my high school, and they're all mixes, right? And I won't call them mutts because no dog's a mutt. They were all mixes. And we had a 3-legged dog, and we were the Tohatchi Cougars, and he was the same color as a cougar, and so he just became our mascot, and we would feed him every day at lunchtime because we called him the Tohatchi Cougar. But usually when someone refers to a res dog, they're probably a mixed breed, and they're probably missing a leg. I'm not trying to be mean. I love dogs. All right, next. Native students avoid eye contact with teachers as a sign of disrespect. True or false?
False.
Okay, I got false. Any counters? Right. Why is that? What do you think? Why would you think a native student would avoid eye contact with teachers or others in authority?
Hey, Dustin, I
Yeah.
can respond to that. I
Okay.
did a study. My dissertational study with my doctorate degree was in learning styles of American Indian / Navajo high school students. And this was the question that one of these questions came up here. The question was, the eye contact. Oftentimes that the result of that study was that the student, because of the respect that they showed to the authority figure, they don't look the person in the eye with eye contact. But as the years go on, they kind of overcome that because of professional gestures.
Mm-hmm.
Like we sit in a professional world, and so is all the other people who are listening. We
Mm-hmm.
have to have that eye contact. But I think growing up, we establish ourselves with a culture. That culture is being established with the non-contact because of the authority figure, because of respect, and oftentimes it's because they're our elders. So anyway, that's just my piece.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for going beyond just teachers, but and youngsters, right? It does change, and I'll attest to that. And I when I got up here from high school, it was an odd thing for me to do. I've actually spoke to my teachers, and I found myself just looking at an ear on one of their ears or even their chin, and they're like, hey, right here, and I'm like, oh, hey. And when I started dating the woman I eventually married, she grew up here. She grew up, and she's native, she's Sioux and Navajo, and when I would talk to her, she was like, "Hey, look at my eyes. Why don't you look at my face when we're talking?" And it was like, "Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that." But yeah, and it's still something that I have to actually do and concentrate on and purposely do to make eye contact with those that I speak with, because it's not something that I grew up with. And still, even with my mom, I don't look at her in the eye even. She's scary. Just kidding. No, she just, she's someone that I just don't, we don't, she doesn't look at me in the eye either. We just kind of face towards each other and kind of look off into the distance and have conversations that way. And that's just how it's been when I grew up. Let's go to the next one.
Dustin, let
go
me
ahead.
just add a little sidebar to this.
Yeah.
Way back when, my grandfather would say that if you look in a person's eye long enough, you'll see the heart. Maybe that's why you and your wife, she wanted to see what your heart looks like.
She wanted to steal my soul. Just kidding. No, just kidding. All right, next. Why were Native Americans called Indians? A, because first explorers to come to the Americas were from India. B, because they came from the land of India. C, because Columbus thought he landed in India and assumed that natives were Indian. D, because the name Indian sounded familiar to the name that they used to refer to themselves as. E, because East Indian Trading Company had an exclusive trading right in the Americas. What do you guys think?
I think it's C, but this sounds like something out of a textbook.
So it's questionable. It's questionable if it came out of a textbook. What do you guys think? Have you heard most of them? I totally made up D, so I hope you didn't hear D. I made up E also. But C, is probably the most common thought, right? Because Columbus thought he landed in India and assumed that natives were Indian. And I've heard arguments otherwise. I heard that back in 1492, the area we know as India wasn't even called India. So why was Columbus calling it India? And so maybe that's not right. But again, I don't. Maybe that source was wrong. They also looked at Columbus's writings, and he didn't write. I mean, in Spanish, he wrote Indios, and in Spanish you can say Indio for Indian, but he didn't spell it Indio. He spelled it EN space DIOS, and so it was Indios, which meant in God, and that kind of reference that when they related that back to his other descriptions of native people, he called them living, they lived like in a Garden of Eden. They were of an innocent state. They shared with one another, that no one committed wrongs with one another. And so that kind of matches that. Maybe he thought they were more of a holy people in God, in Dios, but I can't tell you why for sure why he called why native people were called Indians. But you're right, C is the textbook answer, and so that's probably true. I'm sure there's more educated people than me that know better, and they put that in textbook for that. But we'll see. All right, next. Which of the following caricatures is not offensive? Anybody? Hey, if you don't
They
think
all
they're
are. They all are.
They both are.
Right. I mean, this was one of the arguments when people were protesting the Cleveland Indians mascot, Chief Wahoo. They were saying that he was just the native version of the Sambo character that was depicted for African American people. And back when this was put out, you can see it was 2012. That was pretty recent. And they're saying why is one all right and one not? Where are we at in this, and where are we at in this argument? Are we just picking and choosing who has a right to say that something is offensive? But we know now that the Cleveland Indians have done away with their mascot, right? They slowly did it. First, they did away with it for away games. I think they did away. That wasn't on their uniforms at away games, and then they slowly transitioned to not having it on their home game uniforms. And then they just got to the point a few months ago to where they don't use that logo at all anymore. And so I don't think they're going to change their nickname any right now, but they have for sure changed their logo on this. All right, let's go to the next one. Where do most Native Americans live today? In the wilderness? In various places around the country and world? On reservations? Or there are no more Native Americans today?
In the wilderness.
Literally everywhere.
Right? They're everywhere. Indians are everywhere. I think there are statistics that show 60% of natives live off reservation. So we could probably say that, but really everywhere. I remember I was serving a mission for the LDS Church, and I was in Miami, and I get a phone call in my little apartment, and a Navajo guy from Shiprock called me and said, "Hey, I heard you're Navajo. Can we come talk? I'm just homesick." So I just found him, and we ate, and we talked to this guy, and he was older than me, and he just wanted someone to talk to. My wife and I were in a dance group at BYU, and we were in South Africa. and we got to travel from Johannesburg up north all the way down to Cape Town on the south tip of South Africa, and in between there somewhere, I ran into a Cheyenne a Cheyenne kid. And he was like, "Hey, are you native?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm native too." And then yeah, turns out years after that, I ran into him again right here in Provo. It's Tyler Youngbull. First met him in South Africa, then ran into him here in Provo, Utah. It was just a wild thing. I ran into natives everywhere. And there's this little Navajo guy named Edison, and he's from Cameron, Arizona. I used to run into him every year at BYU's powwow. He's even stayed at my house a few times because he just came up and didn't really arrange a place to stay. So he stayed with me while he was at BYU for almost the whole month of March. And then my wife went to a wedding reception in Hawaii, and he was there at the wedding reception. And she was like, "Eddie, son, what are you doing here?" There, Indians are everywhere.
I saw him at the swap meet in Hawaii. No one ever
See, there we go. You know I'm telling the truth. Edison's everywhere. But he's a wonderful man. I'm glad Indians are everywhere because it does create a sense of home and a sense of not being alone. And so I'm really glad about that. Yeah, but natives are everywhere. Some are in the wilderness, but we're pretty much everywhere. Let's go to the next one. Which of the following is not known as one of the civilized tribes?
Creek.
Navajo.
Keep going. Let's hear some more answers.
They're all civilized.
All right. So
But legally, the Navajo are on the list that they called the civilized tribes.
yeah, so historically speaking, and those that participated in the Trail of Tears, it's all those listed except the Navajo. But I also believe that all natives are civilized. But if you're asked, if there's like, who are the civilized tribes? Or the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole, and I put that on in my introduction to Indian studies courses. After we studied that, I said, hey, name the 5 tribes that were referred to as the civilized tribes that participated in the Long Walk, and they forget them, right? And they just start making up names and adding TAW to the end of them. And it's just funny. They'll just like something saw, something but anyway, for real, it's all of them except the Navajo, historically speaking. But just so you know, again, this is just to help build a foundation and a little bit to get to know your students a little better. All right, next one. Native American religion is based upon fear and superstition.
False.
False. Anyone else believe otherwise? Yeah, for a lot of even Navajos, everything is don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And so, sometimes you feel like there's a little bit of fear there, right? Don't stand in the rugloom. Don't. All the things that I've done. I'm just kidding. All these things, they say, don't do this, but it's not really based on fear. It's based upon if, we do other things to help us be happy, right? And I think like most religions or most spirituality paths that people have, if you don't want to call native cultural and religious beliefs religion, if you just want to say it's a spiritual path, a spiritual direction, a spiritual lifestyle, most things are based upon how can we be happy, right? How can we find balance in things, and how can we move forward and provide in ways that are beneficial. And so I think there's sometimes, especially in old movies and old westerns, you'll see Native religion portrayed in ways that seemed really crazy and scary, right? And usually the hero of the film is is convincing Native people that their beliefs are superstitious, as opposed to what Christianity is. But you compare cultural beliefs and spiritual beliefs or religious beliefs with even with Christianity or Judaism or any other religion. There are some things that you're like, I don't know if you can make that argument, right? It's we all have things that that others may see that as a little out there, and I think the most part, if you're in a classroom and you have traditional students with traditional beliefs, you got to respect that, and you got to respect where they're coming from, because that's where they find happiness, and that's where they find that balance, and that's what they're being taught at home, and you don't want to say things that would undermine their parents in that way. Let's go to the next one. Okay. This is just more. I forgot that was in there. But I thought, you look at these and this is more on the Cleveland Indians side and probably on the Washington Redskins side and other groups that have native mascots and native logos. And we're seeing that change, and I think that's just, it's wild. I never thought it would change, quite honestly. I've always argued for the change, but I didn't know that it would. I'm even the in the NFL, Washington, right? They're just called the Washington football team. Now they haven't replaced their logo or their nickname. I guess they did. They're just a football team. And then we had Cleveland do the same. Uh, and I was just speaking to a group of people, and it wasn't about anything really important. I was just in a group and we were all talking, and they found out that I taught American Indian Studies, and one of them came up to me afterwards and say, "Hey man, what's the big deal about native mascots, right? Look at the University of Utah. The Utes are okay with it. So why isn't everyone else okay with it?" And so the easiest response I had was, why do you think the Ute tribe is okay with it? And he didn't know, he was just like, well, he wanted to say because they're not easily offended or, something like that. And I said, well, that's probably not it. A big reason why the University of Utah has that nickname and the logo that they do is because they actually spoke with the Ute tribe. Right? They actually had a conversation. They have a memorandum of agreement, and where the tribe said, "Hey, we're cool with this if you can abide by certain things. Can you control the way your fans act? Can you can this is how we want to be represented, and if you want to use this, if you can follow our guidance on how we should be represented, how we should be represented, like this, then maybe we can come to some sort of agreement." And I let him know, that not every university does that. Not every tribe meets with universities and have that conversation and agree on how appropriate representation should be. And I can name a few that have had that conversation, and that those communities have found a working relationship with each other. But it's not just, hey, we're going to do it and you should be okay with it because those tribes A, B, and C are okay with it, and those other schools, you should be okay with it here. It really deserves some type of conversation and consultation to find out why it's okay, and set up parameters and regulations in that use. Let's go to the next one. How many tribes are there in the USA? Any guesses or any knowledge?
D.
D. Who else?
D. but probably E, but a lot of the tribes probably were extinct, sadly.
Well, and these are just, let's just say federally recognized tribes, and D would be right. You know, does anybody know the exact number?
Yeah, 547, 74, yeah.
574, right. We had 6 added during the Trump administration, so it shot the number up to 574. Are there quite a few other tribes that aren't federally recognized that probably just have state recognition? Absolutely. I think there's like 183 of those out there that have state recognition, and probably more that have no recognition at all. But there are quite a number of different tribes out there, meaning there's going to be a lot of diversity in between those tribes. We don't really we can't say all Indians are the same, right? We dress different, and we speak different, and we have different. So some of us have different sense of humors, and what's true for one tribe spiritually may not be true for another tribe spiritually. And so I would just encourage everyone not to make those assumptions that, hey, we're all the same, right? Because we're really not. There's a lot of things that play into what makes tribes unique and different from one another. So may include geography, may include, we can have origin stories, even down to the types of moccasins we wear, right? So we just be aware of that not all tribes are the same. Let's go to the next one. Native students may purposely underperform in schools. True or false? What do you guys think?
I think true and false.
Explain.
Well, I know, like, if it just depends on opportunities that are given each student. So I just think that if students are given more opportunities to not only learn, but excel in their academics, then of course they're going to do better. And then if students have a lot more that they need to deal with, you know, like all of the needs that they have. So if they have you know, family that's supportive, if they have food, if they have all the emotional and social emotional things that kids need to grow, you know, of course they'll probably do better in school. But if they don't, you know, that's just one more thing that becomes a barrier for them. And then also how much oral language is spoken, either in their native language or in English in the home. A lot of times their students are subjective to just not speaking a whole lot anymore. You know, in the past, we used to have a lot of traditional oral storytelling with our ancestors and our elders, and we don't see that anymore with all the social media and technology that's available. So it just depends on, I think, what opportunity students are given.
You know,
I could be wrong.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and that's why I put the may in there, right? They may purposely underperform, and I was reading a study on it where some kids on reservations in reservation schools that really understand a subject may not want their friends to feel bad on the grades that they get, so they purposely miss questions and don't answer questions or don't turn in homework, so that there's not an academic separation between them and their friends sometimes, because they don't want others to feel bad about it. And I thought that was a wild study that, you know, that someone said that. And you know, and I have a little brother that is a pretty intelligent kid. Well, he's a man now, I guess, but you know, he actually told me that when he was in high school. I was like, Shadow, you're a smart kid. What's up with your grades, man? And he was like, well, he was like, I don't want to get teased. And I said, who's teasing you, man? And he said, some people are calling him nerd and stuff like that. And then at other times he would just say, you know what? He goes, he had a friend that was having a hard time at home, and he was just down most of the time. And then on top of that, his grades weren't so good. And one of these classes that he was in with him, my brother would purposely not get good grades so that his friend wouldn't feel bad. And it was just a wild conversation having that conversation with my brother. And then on top of that, reading that in a study that I had when I was teaching Indian education, and it was like, oh wow, this is crazy, but interesting on that same point. And so just be aware of that, and that might be something. If you have a Native student in your class, and they usually get good grades, and all of a sudden their grades drop, or maybe they're missing things, and wait a minute, you've answered way harder questions than this, why are you missing this? Ask them what's up, ask them what's wrong, and see if there's something that you can help them with there. Most kids, rather than just say, hey, do this, you know better, they respond better to, hey, what's going on, what's happening here, and they'll let you know.
Hey, Dustin, I'm facing one with one of those kids, that they're underperforming because they found out that they were pretty good at math at the beginning of the school year, and as the year went on, he just kind of fell behind. And as we talk and stuff, things that he was doing was not okay with his friends, so he backed off. And yeah,
and we have to find out how we can approach that. Has anyone else come across that? And if you have, what do you think are the best ways of approaching that are? Because you want them to do well, but you also want them to do socially well. So what do you guys think? Any ideas? I was watching Stand and Deliver. Who's seen Stand and Deliver, everyone? With Mr. Escalante, who's teaching in California and helping kids pass the AP exams in calculus. Has everyone seen that movie? Do you remember what he did for one of his students? Remember he gave him a math book to take home, a math book to leave in his locker, and a math book to keep on his desk, because he didn't want his gang member friends to see him carrying a math book around. And he would rather them see him with his math book in his locker, not going home. But his friends wouldn't know that he had a math book at home too, waiting for him. I'm not saying you need to do that. I'm not saying you need to write one score on his test and put another score in the grade book. But I'm saying, maybe there's things that we can do to help students navigate through this. It's a difficult time in their lives when it comes to being accepted and having friends, and maybe that can lead to different conversations later about what kind of friends do you really want to have in your life. But that's a difficult thing, and I think every kid's different, and you're going to have to approach it in different ways on that. But I would say, if you can, try to accommodate those kids and help them to succeed and achieve that potential that they have. Let's go to the next one.
Hey, Dustin, let me
just
make a comment on that also. I saw this in athletics too.
Oh, yeah.
I saw this where, you have a person who's really gifted,
mm-hmm.
and the rest of his teammates are not as gifted. And plus that, the person who has a lot of ability, he goes and practices even more. And those people who don't have that talent, they start to not practice. So, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of these students. even today, I see the pressures coming from all directions. It comes, from the academics to athletics to even social, so,
Yeah,
we have to, we somewhere along the line, we have to direct and guide our children, our students, and because they're just as capable as anybody else out there. So,
absolutely. And even, oh, go ahead. Is there another comment? My family moved to Mapleton, and my daughter's at Mapleton Junior High. They had a cross country team, and she didn't know anybody, and so joining this cross country team, she made a lot of friends, and my she really likes to race, right? She likes to race, and she likes to beat people, um, and uh, and so we started going to her meets, and she was coming in like fourth on her team, and I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm not a demanding parent. I'm not like, you can do better than this. What's wrong with you? That's not me. But I did ask her. I said, hey, what's going on? I said, what's, because she had an off year last year, so I wasn't, thinking anything. I just wanted her to start enjoying it again. And she was like, it's good. We're just running, And I'm like, okay. And then we started talking about making goals, and so I said, hey, because she told me how she was doing in practice, and I was like, hey, you should see if you can keep up with this person at the race. And so she's like, okay. And so in the next race she did, she came in second for her team, and she was pretty happy about it. But all of a sudden, the friends she had made on that team weren't very friendly to her for a while. So that pressure is out there. And she came back and she said, oh, so and so is not talking to me. I don't know what's going on. And and I was like, oh, it's just maybe it was related to you killing her in these last few weeks, but otherwise, I don't know how to help you with that. And she they slowly had a conversation about things, and it came out, hey, yeah, it kind of threw me off. This was my thing. This is what I thought I was good at. And then you came to the school, and then, you kind of, when you beat me, you kind of took this thing from me, and, and they had a heart to heart conversation about it and resolved it. But those pressures are indeed out there. Ms. Pinnacus, did you have a comment? I thought I saw a hand.
Yeah. Sorry, it took a second for me to unmute. So what I've noticed in some of the high school districts, the diversity is high at my daughter's school, but I noticed like some of the coaches, they could increase the GPA to play on the team, which I think is, it's almost like it's a way to distract the kids from trying out, because then they're already putting themselves in a failure position. Like, I can't keep up with a 3.0, but what I've helped with other parents in this who come to me, and you have to definitely talk to the coaches. These kids they're academically meeting the requirements, but what happens is these kids think that they're not capable of trying out or making a team. So we really have to ensure that our parents talk for the kids, but also give them that support. That's just what I've noticed within the school districts, and coming across with parents who have athletes in our districts.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and encourage your parents of your Native students to be more proactive in their school with their coaches, with their teachers. Not just visiting with the coaches, but also visiting, their parent-teacher conferences. Really understand and participate in that. When you have your Title VI meetings with your parents there, with your parent advisory committee that's there, really talk to them about that and make those encouragements. And that's a great thing. Let's go to the next one. See if I can get through more of these. Is this a dead fish or is it a Navajo handshake? Who knows?
Dead fish.
There were other drawings where one hand was an actual fish, but I thought that'd be giving it away too much. Again, this might be cultural too. Are there other tribes besides Navajo on the line? Is there anyone from Fort Duchesne or Shoshone tribes, Goshute tribes, Paiute? How do you all shake hands? Is it a firm, good grip, or is it a touch? Let me know. Because where I grew up, if you tried to give someone a really strong handshake, that could be offensive. And so it seemed like it was almost a touch to me most of the times. Like when I went around and go to my grandma's house and all her friends were there, it was just, we were just touching each other's fingers, going around shaking people's hands like that. And so I kind of had that in my mind. I remember going to a place where I was one of the only natives in the area, and I went to shake this guy's hand. I just forgot, and this dude, he actually broke my hand because I went in really soft, and my hand was really relaxed. And when he squeezed my hand, he folded my hand backwards and broke my hand with his handshake. And we both heard it, and we're like, "Oh, I was like, crap." And he wasn't even trying to break my hand. He was just trying to give that firm handshake, right? But be aware of that. It's being polite. It can be seen as being polite, but then you might want to talk to your students about that too. Say, hey, I know culturally this is how you shake hands, but again, like Chuck brought up, about looking people in the eye professionally, that may change depending on who you're working with, and they need to be aware of those things. But acknowledging cultural handshakes also, and not putting it down, because my boys do that sometimes. I don't really shake my boys' hands, but for some reason my boys have a really soft handshake, and I've heard people say that, don't shake hands like that, shake it like this, like a man, and afterwards I'm like, hey, men shake hands differently, it's not always like that, but just be ready for it in case you can reciprocate the handshake you're receiving, all right? But I said you can shake hands how you want, but you can always acknowledge that this isn't the dead fish, this isn't this is an acceptable handshake too, but you may need to read the room again with the people you're with. All right, let's go to
Justin?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So it's not even called a handshake in Navajo. You say shilak edol means you put your hand in, he or she put his hand in mine, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just really a touch.
Mm-hmm.
So we shouldn't even call it a handshake. We might come up with a different word for it.
Yeah.
Chuck.
Chuck, you need to amend your studies, your paper. Just kidding.
Yeah, I do.
Indian hand placement. Good. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and if other tribes on the line, if you have comments on that, or you want to just think about that and relate that to your students, think about it. It's out there. Let's go to the next one. All Native Americans speak the same language. I'm just going to tell you it's false, okay? There's a lot of different languages out there. There's about 250 known existing native languages, about 100 and something dialects out there. So they're a little different. I didn't know that growing up. I remember I was raised by my grandma because my parents were really busy, and we just lived like 50 yards to the west of her. And so I'd hang out with my grandma, and Navajo was the thing. And then when I remember we took my grandma to watch a movie called Windwalker. Has anybody seen Windwalker? So the whole movie's in Cheyenne, And when I was little, I was like, I don't understand a word they're saying, right, in my head. And I started reading really late. I didn't really start reading until third grade. I had a hard time reading. And I remember I was just like, I looked at my mom and I was like, do you understand what they're saying? And she's like, I'm reading. And I was like, looked at my grandma and I'm like, do you understand what she's saying or what they're saying? And she just laughed at me. She's like, no. And I didn't understand. And I was a little kid. I was like first or second grade. Maybe I was in kindergarten. I don't remember when Wind Walker came out. But yeah, just Native people speak different languages. So be aware of that. Be aware. Some languages are related, and one tribe can actually understand another tribe, and because they just have different dialects of the same base language, and so that's pretty cool. Let's go to the next one.
Hey, Dustin.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of languages, there's a Native Language Summit going on. It started yesterday and it continues today, I think from noon on, and at about 4 o'clock, I think yesterday. So if people want to, yeah, I found it very interesting. They had people from all over. I mean, Alaska, they even have people from Hawaii, Samoa, the Mariana Islands. It's a Native Language Summit. So yeah.
Okay. So could they just Google Native Language Summit and they should find it?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Now we know. I'll try to jump on that today too. I saw another hand.
Today's our Heritage Language conference too. For Sound School District. Our Heritage Language Conference is today. Oh, so if you have not registered, I can send the registration link through the chat. But as soon as you register, you'll get the conference link for our conference this year.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Awesome. Yeah. Two things you guys can look at and share with your students. Share with your parents. Awesome. All right. Squaw Peak honors Native American women. True or false? All right. I'm hoping you say false, because it doesn't. Just a background on the word. It may have come from a tribe back east, and which was accepted by non-Indian people that slowly started moving west, and they brought it back west to them. But it may be part of a word that meant woman from a tribe back east, but I haven't been able to verify that. What we do know is that the meaning of that word changed throughout it changed as it moved west. It went from being referring to a woman, to a hardworking woman, to an industrious woman, and then it got to a point where it referred to Native women that worked in prostitution outside of soldier forts. And by the time it got here to Utah, it had a very negative connotation with it, and the history behind Squaw Peak here in Provo, it has a really rough history. It was at a time where this area, Utah County, and South Salt Lake County, it was traditional Ute land. And there was a lot of Ute people that lived down here, and this was the Ute winter. This is where the Utes were during the winter. You'd find them here right now, right? There's fresh water. There's a freshwater lake. There's a river coming down with fresh water. There's game, and when prior to Utah becoming a territory, about 6 months prior to becoming a territory, the LDS Church was already set up here in Salt Lake, and they wanted to come down to Utah County, and they had a small fort here, and the relationship between the state between the church and the tribes was really rough, and they actually issued an extermination order against the Utes that were living in this valley in Utah County. Special Order Number 2, they called it, and there was a lot of small battles, and then ended up in a lot of people dying, natives being beheaded, and in front of either the younger kids and the woman that died up on that mountain. She was not a prostitute. She was someone's wife, someone's mother, and but they named the peak Squaw Peak. At a time when the word squaw had a very negative connotation with it. And there are groups out there right now that are just on the verge of getting that name changed, and they're trying to work with the Ute tribe and seeing if they would like to participate and offer a name as a replacement. But that's a rough. I would never call my wife that. I'll be honest with you. I won't call my daughters that. And even back home on the Navajo Nation, we'll have ceremony. Well, one certain ceremony that it's actually nicknamed a squaw dance, right? And it's pretty it's accepted in an odd way down there. But if you look at how that started, even there was non-Indian trading post owners that were observing these ceremonies and they would have like social dancing outside the ceremony, and it was basically ladies' choice where girls and women would ask men to dance, and then if you danced with them or if you didn't dance with them, you paid them like dimes and nickels and stuff. And because it's all innocent, it's just fun. But because these women were getting paid to dance with men, the native traders started calling this ceremony a squaw dance because women were being paid for service. And they put a total negative connotation on the ceremony itself and the social aspect itself. And so if you didn't know, please be aware of that, and please don't use that term. I'm using it now, and I just want you to hear it, and I want you to know what it's related to. And this is purely for educational purposes, but it could be pretty offensive to those around you. Please don't call your female students that, right? Don't refer to their moms as that, or their grandparents or their grandmothers. All right. All right, let's go to the next one. What does this refer to? Does anybody know? Don't all answer at once.
Murdered Indigenous women.
Yes, there's a huge epidemic of Native women being murdered or going missing in the United States. Not just in the United States, but in a lot of countries where Indigenous numbers are really high. In Canada, United States, and Central and South America. There's just ginormous numbers of this happening. Let's go to the next slide. This is from the Urban Indian Health Institute, right? This is a study that we're looking at right now, and these numbers are all very new. What we're finding is that there are not a lot of statistics on this. No one's taking statistics of Native women going missing or murdered, and so because the data is so scant, it's hard to come up with reasons why this is happening to begin with. And so but the federal government has enacted a program to investigate it and figure out why this is happening. That just happened on Monday, right? In the White House, that Biden signed that into effect. The state of Utah has a missing and murdered Indigenous women's task force that's meeting tomorrow in Bluff. Again, trying to figure out how to just figure out why this is happening and what we can do to combat it, right? There's Francie just shared a stat that Salt Lake City is number 8 in the nation when it comes to missing and murdered Indigenous women. So it's close to home, and like I said, the statistics are so outrageous that if you have Native students in your class, they've probably been affected by this. So please make yourself aware of it and be prepared to talk about it if they bring it up, and try to figure out a way to help people work through this. But please just make yourself aware of it. Let's go to the next slide. Elizabeth Warren is Native American. True or false? Nobody.
in her own mind.
I was going to say, who is she?
Elizabeth Warren. She was a congresswoman also, and she had claimed Native American ancestry, and really it was because that's what she was told her whole life, right? She wasn't enrolled. She couldn't find any enrollment proof of anybody in her ancestry, but her whole life she was being told she was Native, and so she shared that and she believed that, and if I'm correct, I think she used it on her resume too, because this was her belief. Now there are a lot of Native people. Yeah, she self-identified, and on the census, you can self-identify as Native American, right? Um, and there are a lot of Native people that maybe don't meet enrollment requirements for their tribe. As a judge, I've had people arrested and on the reservation, and I found out I had no jurisdiction over them because they were not enrolled with any tribe, and not because their parents were lazy and didn't enroll them. It was because the tribes that they had blood from, they didn't meet the enrollment requirements for any one of them. And the crazy thing was, one of them was actually 100% Native, but didn't meet the enrollment requirements of any of the tribes that made him who he was. And so we didn't have jurisdiction over him. But still, there's a lot of different reasons why people aren't enrolled. And this is a question that's really hard on that. I'm legally, Elizabeth Warren is not Native, and I think we've had this conversation, right, where she's not a member of a federally recognized tribe, so she doesn't carry the legal status of being Indian. But there are plenty of Native people that out there that don't meet that legal requirement to hold the legal status of Indian, and they may be racially Indian, but they're not legally Indian, and there's that big difference there, and we can talk about that more. That's like a training in and of itself. But just, you may have students in your class, right, that identify as Native, but they're not eligible for enrollment. They may be blonde. I just had an interview with a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid who's a quarter Hopi. And I talked with him, and I was like, holy smokes. I didn't say that to his face, but in my mind, I was like, holy smoke, this guy's blonde and has blue eyes, and he's a quarter Hopi. And he's enrolled, and he has a home site, applied for a home site lease back on Second Mesa or whatever, and this is a big part of his life. And so it's hard to judge, and it's hard to make that. And so it's hard for me to say someone isn't Native, because they may grow up what if they're grown up, maybe they are not federally, or they're not enrolled, but they've grown up in an Indian household, right? I was reading a law school application where this person said, my mom is 1/4 this, and so is her sister. My mom married a non-Indian. My aunt married an Indian, and so all my cousins are enrolled and I'm not. But we grew up in the same place. We were raised the same way. We have exactly the same experiences growing up. But because of who my mom married, I can't tell you I'm Native American on my law school application, right? So there's a really broad body of evidence that you can use when looking at someone's Indianness, right? And I think even in Title VI, a child can still qualify and be for Title VI services, so long as their grandparent, right, is enrolled. And so just be aware that there's no right. I don't think there's a real or wrong or right answer to Elizabeth Warren, because I'm probably not in a place to make that judgment. But be aware that your students may come from a variety of different backgrounds and circumstances. Let's go to the next one. Native boys wear their hair long because Native fashion dictates that they should. We're going to try to get through these, so I'm just going to tell you that's false. There's cultural reasons for why people wear their hair long, for why Native people wear their hair long, or don't wear their hair long. You should, you know, for a lot of tribes, it represents their knowledge. Their white hair represents their wisdom. That they should keep their hair in a braid or tied up so that their thoughts are kept intact. So for some tribes, it represents strength, and so there's a lot of different. And there's for some tribes, only certain people can touch their boy's hair, right? I have friends that are Sioux, and they're like, hey, only their aunts, their sisters, or their mom can touch their hair. So if my kid's hair comes unraveled at school, please don't fix it. You know, I've heard that. Let's go to the next one. Who's this? I'm trying to trick you guys. Who is this?
Deb, is it Holland or Helen?
Deborah Holland.
Deb Holland. Isn't that an awesome picture of her? That's totally awesome. Yeah, that's Deb Holland. She was again one of the first Native women elected to Congress. Her and Sharice Davids were elected together, and she's now serving as the Secretary of Interior, which has never been a position. It was never a position occupied by a Native person. So she's there right now. Let's go to the next one. Which of the following Native Americans served as Vice President of the United States? Ben Nighthorse Campbell, Charles Curtis, or Dan Quayle? Or there has never been a Native American Vice President of the United States?
Charles Curtis.
Charles Curtis is correct. He was the first. He was a Native American. I think he was Kaw. He's from the Kaw tribe, and he was Vice President of the United States. I thought I'd throw in Dan Quayle. I mean, he's a white guy, but Quayle was a bird and it sounded Indian, so I thought I'd throw you guys off. All right, let's go to the next one. Which of the following tribe is not in Utah? Ute, Navajo, Hopi, or Goshute? Not traditional lands in Utah. I'm saying they're not currently located in Utah.
Hopi.
Hopi. Awesome. Let's go to the next one. Who is this?
Jim Thorpe.
Yay! Someone's on a roll here. All right. Hopis had indigenous roots in Utah, right? That's good to know. Especially they're involved in the Bears Ears debate.
I think the one thing to notice is his shoes.
Yeah. 2 different shoes, 2 different socks. Somebody stole his shoes and socks when they found out that he was just kicking butt in the is it the 1912 Olympics? And or maybe it was 1924. I don't know. I don't have to.
No, 1912.
1912. And so he found a couple pair of shoes. The shoes are even different sizes, right? So and he ended up winning the decathlon and pentathlon. So he that was like 15 events altogether that he had to do very well in to win that. And when he won, they put the wreath on his head. They said that he was the greatest athlete in the world when he won that. Let's go to the next one. When did Native Americans become citizens of the United States?
1924.
1924. So, hey, keep that in your back pocket. You might get that on Trivial Pursuit. All right, let's go to the next one. College is free at all universities for all Native Americans.
No.
No, yeah, tell that to the guys that I'm paying my loans to. You all right? I owe too much money in student loans. But yeah, and even if there are scholarships and if there are tuition waiver or agreements in some universities for some tribes, it's important to understand that it's not for everyone. And it's not a racial, it's not a right and privilege based on your race as a Native American people. That's based on your legal status as Indian, as a citizen of a federally recognized tribe, right? Who made agreements with the federal government. And so these aren't race-based rights and privileges. These are treaty right and privileges based upon a government-to-government relationship. So let's go to the next one. What is this? This is Carlisle boarding school. All right. We'll have a discussion on this probably later. Let's go to the next one. why were these pictures taken?
Kill the Indian, save the man.
Yeah, right. And Pratt, who ran these boarding schools, he would take before and after pictures, and he would use these pictures to raise funds for his school because there wasn't a lot of federal money appropriated to Indian boarding schools, and so a lot of these were run privately by religious organizations or just people that needed a job, and so he would use these before after pictures to show the progress and civilization, these are all in quotes I'm using, of Native people who attended school. So that's why they were taken. Let's go to the next one. How many Indian casinos are there in Utah?
None.
Just the one in Chuck's basement. Just kidding. Oh, just kidding. Wednesday night games at Chuck's. All right.
Shh, don't you need a...
Let's go to the next one. Powwow is traditional for all Native American tribes. No, this is one of those things that because of boarding schools, because of relocation of tribes, where many tribes started to interact with one another more and share in conversation and in social activities and it spread. It's what a sociologist would probably call a pan-Indian practice today, but there certainly holds traditional value for certain tribes, but for a lot of other tribes, it's something that they've adopted into their practice, or just their members have adopted it into their practice. Let's go to the next one. Who's this?
Billy Mills.
Billy Mills, yay! 1964 Tokyo Olympics, won the 10,000 meter. It was amazing. You can still watch that on YouTube. Let's go to the next one. Native American suicide rates are blank than the national average.
C,
right? So if you see your students that are having trouble, please talk to them. Ask them what's wrong. Ask them if they're okay. You should do that with all your students, but ask them if they're okay. Let's address this and take care of them. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. Who are these guys?
code talkers.
Code talkers. The ones on the left are Navajo Nation. The ones on the right are actually the first code talkers in the United States. They're the Choctaw code talkers. And my wife's grandfather, who was suicidal, he was a Dakota code talker, but he operated more in Europe. So a lot of different tribes, even Hopis, served as code talkers in the U.S. military. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. Try to get through all these. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. That's a downer. Who's this?
It's not Chuck, is it?
Yeah, it's Chuck Foster. Yay!
That was
wow, that's pretty cool, Dr. Foster.
That was awesome.
That was back in the day.
You may not know this, but Chuck Foster was a bad A back in the day.
Assuming that was taken last week sometime, Dr. Foster?
Chuck Foster had the school record in the half mile, the mile, the 2 mile, and the 3 mile in college, and he was a junior college All-American. And were you a runner-up in cross country in the national championships too, Chuck?
I was, and I ended up at the University of Arizona. I basically did the same thing. So
check that out.
Boy, you really blew my cover, man.
I'm waiting to see Chuck with that hair again, just flowing in the wind, and it's awesome. Hey, but I'll tell you, I'm not doing this. I wanted to recognize Chuck because he's an awesome guy. He was my cross country coach, and he helped me at UVU when it was UVSC, and he's really worked hard to help make Indian education in the state of Utah something wonderful and something powerful. And if if you'll be surprised at how many Native people have accomplished so many different things in the U.S. and even just here in the state of Utah. People ask me why I powwow a lot. I powwow a lot because I like talking to older people. I'm not saying Chuck's old, because I haven't seen Chuck at a powwow in a while. But I talk to older dancers and older singers at powwows, and just hearing their life and the things that they've accomplished and the things that they're able to do, it really influences and changes my life. I have the opportunity to work with Larry Echohawk, almost daily, and hearing his stories and him growing up and the things that have influenced his life for him to do what he did. It's just amazing. So I'm asking you, get to know your community, but also get to know your students. Let them get to know you, because I really do feel like you're going to be an inspiration to the kids that you have a stewardship over as a coordinator, as an educator. They really look up to you. One of the greatest people I've ever met in my high school was a Latino man named Frank Katnick, and he was just the craziest man I had ever met. But he helped me understand the importance of college, of getting good grades, and of being a strong individual, and questioning things that bothered me, and talking to people and confronting people with things that I considered big issues. And if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have ended up where I did. And if it wasn't for so many of you that I've met throughout my life, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So I just want to thank all of you. Wish all of you a wonderful Thanksgiving, and let me know how I can help if you need it. And I sincerely mean that. James, are you still on? He may not be.
Yes, I am.
James has a quick announcement.
Oh, thanks, Dustin. Thanks for the great presentation. And I just wanted to share a personal story. Shout out to coordinators. I mean, I really appreciated the presentation today, and it kind of brought back a lot of memories of when I was a student, and just how influential my coordinator was with my education and my school experience. Bernice Yakamoto was my coordinator when I was in middle school and high school, and she was really someone who made me proud to be Native. Because you're encountering stereotypes and all kinds of negative experiences that kids just throw at you. And so it was with her guidance and her encouragement that kind of led me to be an advocate. So again, that's just another way to thank you all for doing what you guys do. You guys influence the youth that you guys work with directly, and so the hard work that you guys put in does pay off. And so just wanted to express my gratitude for everything that you guys do as well. And I just wanted to share, if I could share my screen. So our department, the Utah Department of Cultural and Community Engagement, would like us to share a contest that our department is kind of heading. And so it's called the One Utah, a Revolutionary Contest. And so this contest is going to be, it's for high school students. It gives them an opportunity to win tickets to the Broadway production of Hamilton. And so this is going to be, it's a Saturday showing on January 2nd, 2022. And I guess students join. Can you guys see am I still on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you guys see my screen? Or is it still
Yes,
trying to
yes.
pull up? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's open to high school students. Essentially how you enter is the student writes a letter to Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson. So it has to be at least 100 words, between 100 to 400 words. And there are two prompts that that will guide the students. And so prompt one is, what's an important issue in your community? Outline the issues briefly in a paragraph or two for Governor Cox or Lieutenant Governor Henderson. and then offer a revolutionary solution that might help your community work better. The second prompt is, what revolutionary idea would help your school or town be more inclusive? And so these prompts are just to kind of get kids thinking. And we wanted to share this with you all because we would love to have Indigenous voices as part of this opportunity. And so we just, wanted to share it. I sent Chuck an email so he can share that as well. And then I'll put the link in the chat so you guys can access it. But if you guys have any students who are interested, please share it with your students. And again, it's just a great opportunity for a youth to win tickets to Hamilton for a show in January. And if the student lives off the Wasatch Front, they are lodging and travel will be provided, so that won't be an issue. And so again, we just wanted to share this opportunity with you all. And like I said, I'll put the link in the chat box. But that's the only update that I had.
Thanks, James. Hey, thanks, Chuck, for letting me do this.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, guys. That was very educational. Thank you, Dustin, for your preparation time and all the information that you've given us. I think we got a lot of things to ponder, and we thank you for that. And James, you also, with your work with the Division of Indian Affairs. Now let's go down to number 4, which is I just have 2 minor, well, not minor, but they're 2 small updates. One is that the graduation rate from last year has gone back up to 78.4%. So I give tribute to you guys for making that climb again, because in 2020 we were at 72.9, and I think there was a lot of disparities at that time. We had COVID, and everybody was sheltered down, and we found that there was a lot of inequities, and the equality wasn't there as far as the educating for our American Indian students. And basically this was a wake-up call for everybody, not only the Utah State Board of Education, but it goes all the way up to the governor's office. So at that time, they made some allocations in terms of helping those areas, especially the remote areas of Utah. So that the rural areas, you have the urban areas, you have the rural, and you have the remote. And sometimes the remote was getting the short end of the stick. But I think with that climb, I thank you, Title VI coordinators, for paying attention to that, because without your help and without your encouragement, this wouldn't have happened. And the other update I have is with the funding with Utah grants that's been submitted to your school district, and I noticed that there are a few that have applied for that already. So if you guys just kind of keep in mind the date of application and submit your request, and because the sooner you make your application, it's approved, then you can start purchasing for your supplies for your students, your families, in your program. Don't get caught behind the 8 ball. I know that there are a couple of you out there that were sitting behind the 8 ball last year, and you waived your funding, and I hate to see that funding waived, because when this hits our accountant and they indicate that well, the Title VI really don't need that money because they're turning back the money back to us. So please apply and purchase, and use all what you can. And if you go beyond that allocation, let me know, and maybe we can make some adjustments. Okay. Now the conversation that we have is Brenda. Is she on? Brenda Byu?
Oh.
Yes, I am on.
Okay. Um, let's start by what you uncovered or what you
Okay.
researched. Let's put it that way. Not uncovered,
Okay.
but research, because I think that the uncovering, it's always been there, I think. And I think this conversation would go in terms of what you research in certain schools and certain, certain materials, books, supplies. In this case, it's in fine arts and music. So let me just turn the time over and you can go ahead and carry on the conversation.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm sorry, I think I, I don't know if my screen, it looks like I'm a little smudgy there, but I represent the Byu Arts Partnership, and we have an initiative that's called the Native American Curriculum Initiative. And we work with Native tribes to ask them just one central question. What would you like children of Utah to know about your tribe, or your culture, your history, your arts? And then from there, we develop arts integrated lesson plans. And we have work with teachers, and we also work with school districts. And we have had several, and so we do presentations, and we have had several teachers and school districts reach out to us about a particular song that is usually sung as part of the 4th grade program. And it's been sung for, I'd say, 15 years at the very least. And it is part of that. This is the Utah program that a lot of schools put on, and usually they put on a school program in the spring. And so we're, first of all, really excited that there are teachers out there who are aware that that this song may be problematic. And so I want to start out with just sharing the song with you. And I'm wondering if I could share my screen. And let me see. Or does, I sent my Google Doc to Becky, so let me see, I don't know how to share my screen, I guess. How do I share it? Do you want to just, Becky, would you like to go ahead and just share the Google Doc that I shared with you and open up? So I thought maybe we would, let's look at the YouTube video and let's listen to the song. And I'd like you just to tell me what problems you find with this song, and let's see, and then have a discussion afterwards on what we find problematic.
Hopefully the sound will work on this. Hold on.
Is your sound not working?
Okay, yeah, I have it up and playing. I'm not quite sure how to get the sound to work. My apologies for this.
Would you like me to try to just play it on my computer? Emily, do you want to see if you can play it?
My apologies.
So as we're waiting to hear the song, I know that maybe Jeannie has listened to this song, and I'm hoping that that maybe she can add to the discussion.
Brenda, can you hear me?
Yes.
So maybe if you don't get the to play on, at least show the words, because the words can tell you, or we can find out the problems with the words if you want to just show
Yes.
the words.
Okay, do you know what? Let me see if she can, let me see if I can just share the words here. Can somebody raise their hand if you can hear this? Can you hear that song?
Faint. It's very faint.
It's very faint. Okay, I'll try it again. And let's see. I'll turn mine as high as I can. Okay, here we go.
It's breaking up.
Okay, I don't know how you want to do that, Chuck.
Hey, Brenda.
Yes.
When you're sharing your screen, there's a little box at the top left that says include audio system. Just make sure that box is checked, because then I think the audio will be able to be heard if that box is checked.
So Chuck, do you guys want to still continue trying to find the, do you want to try to share? Or I don't know how to share my screen on this particular,
if you put your YouTube link in the chat, maybe Chuck can share it for you.
Oh, I gave, yeah, I sent it to Becky.
I think I found it online, so let me give it another try.
They gathered seeds from grasses, caught fish and hunted deer. Lived in wiggy-ups and teepees, caves and ogans too. They made pots and baskets, each had a job to do. The Utes, Paiutes, and Goshes, Shoshones, Navajos. The Indian tribes of Utah that lived here long ago. Throughout the mountain valleys, they lived and hunted game. The Ute tribe is where Utah got its name. The Goshes lived on desert land, ate food of every kind. Some insects and rabbits, whatever they could find. The other Indians planted crops which helped keep them alive. A lot of beans and corn was eaten by the tribe. The Utes, Paiutes, and Goshes, Shoshones, Navajos. The Indian tribes of Utah that lived here long ago. Throughout the mountain valleys, they lived and hunted game. The Ute tribe is where Utah got its name. The Indian tribes of Utah worship different things. The air, the wind, the thunder, and even lightning. Believed in the great spirits to whom the tribe would pray. For strength to overcome the trials they faced each day. The Utes, Paiutes, and Goshes, Shoshones, Navajos. The Indian tribes of Utah that lived here long ago. Throughout the mountain valleys, they lived and hunted game. The Ute tribe is where Utah got its
Okay, thank you. Now, can you share my Google Doc? So we had, this is what we found. And so on the Google Doc, maybe it would help if you put the view at about 150 or 200 for those of us that are older. And well, at least we can see the full writing. And so with our work, we have written our perspective on the Utah Indian song, and this is what we found problematic, and we're wondering if maybe we could have a discussion on this if there are other things that you see. So the first bullet point is one thing we find problematic is there's stereotyping found in the way the song of the music is written. It has that strong weak pattern that many people call the Hollywood beat, and it has somehow become attached to Native Americans in general, but it's neither authentic or accurate. The second point that we've given to teachers is that this song is all about the past, and it never brings Native Americans into the present. And there's no reference to the present at all. And we feel like this is really is stereotypical and also may cause Native children to feel uncomfortable and unseen as who they are today. The third point is that there's misrepresentation in the lyrics. You know, even though they say they name the tribal groups, they continually go back to using a singular, I guess a singular noun, and they would say the tribe. And so we feel like even though the 5 tribal groups are represented, it is still homogenizing. And that is something that our initiative is looking to fix. And then the next bullet is, it says that all of them worship the Great Spirit and other things like lightning, air, and wind. And I really feel like that's an inaccuracy, and it perpetuates, again, a narrative that is incorrect. And then the last, which I really feel very strongly about, the last bullet point, is that the first 3 words set the context and positionality of the song by using the words "when white man." And this is supposed to be a song about Utah tribes or indigenous people, and it starts with white man, and therefore it really positions it from their perspective. And so I don't know, are there other people who see other problems with the song, or were we able to just see all of the different points? And first of all, I want to know, do you see problems with the song at all? And you might just have to shout out, because I can't see everyone you might just have to call out because I can't see everyone's hand.
So Brenda, I don't know if teachers know that the song had nothing to do, Indians had nothing to do with authoring this song or any of the facts in the song. And do people, when they teach it, thinks that it was created by Indians to represent us? I think that's something that needs to be distinguished right off the bat.
Yes, and I think that the 3 words they start with definitely sets that context, and it should be, it shows that this song was actually created by a production company where they sell, I don't know if your children have participated in that America presentation that they do at the Marriott Center at the end of May for 5th graders. This song, and it's done by the same group. And first and foremost, this song has been sung over 15 years ago. Maybe 15 years ago, it might have been okay, but we are now in 2021, and I feel like as Native Americans, we're finding our voice, and in finding that, and we're also learning to say no and step up and maybe give better resources to teachers. And so we always accept goodwill, but we also know that different things have had their time. And so you're right. This song was not written by Native Americans, nor were we asked or given. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if anyone was approached. I don't know if official voices were approached. There might have been Native people who may have, signed off on the song, but they may not be an official voice. So another thing that's important for us to remember is that there are 8 sovereign nations and 5 tribal groups in Utah. And our organization, when we work with Native tribes, we find that this is really maybe one of the first steps in helping our teachers understand that though there are 5 tribal groups, there are actually 8 sovereign nations, and each nation wants to be recognized as their own nation, having government to government relationships with the federal government. And so what we bring this to you today as a Title VI group, and also to Chuck's, to his department, to see what you think needs to be done and how it needs to be, what are the next steps? Because come spring, there will be 4th graders singing this song. Unless, and I understand there are many teachers who want to do better. And we're just wondering what you see can be done. Is no reference? Is just taking the song out what you would like? What we have done is we have offered a couple of alternatives, but we'd love to hear what you're thinking. So I'll turn the time over to Title VI coordinators and to Chuck. Well, first of all, I'm wondering if you think that this is problematic.
Yes.
Yeah, this is, let me just say a few, I did some little bit of inquiries and, around the area where I live. And I think this, again, I agree with you. The songs, the lyrics, the motion, it's kind of offbeat. Let's put it that way. Put it lightly. But I did talk with 3 principals in the area. One is where my grandson goes to school. It's right down the street, and he's in the 4th grade. And the principal says that they've never heard of this song. I go down to another school, which is on the east side of where I live, and basically it's the same answer. And I go down the street a little south from here, elementary school, and he says, no, we don't do that. So I think there, I just want to make sure that we be careful. This is not a blanket for all. There's certain schools that haven't heard, so we want to keep it at that, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, I did that part, as far as inquiries with the local elementary schools. But, I do think that we, I don't know, I got to hear it from the rest that my feelings is that this is not appropriate for one, especially this day and time. It kind of gives us a marginalized image again, especially when they go through the lyrics. I'm looking at this, we're not in that time, there's the insects, I don't think many of the tribes didn't eat insects. So, I laugh about this because I don't think there were any American Indians on that committee to develop the song. So that's my take.
So
you guys, you guys express what you guys feel. I think this is the only way we could we see how we could improve our programs, especially the images that are being portrayed in, in our schools for our children.
I see that Sarah
Sarai. That's me.
Sarai.
I'm from Davis, famous Bountiful Braves and all that. We have had so many problems with this program. The majority of our schools get a teepee and they dance around it, and it's inappropriate. We've come out in the last couple of years. The state has another one, U for Utah, that just has a paragraph, which isn't enough for our people either. But I wish we could do something different than that. We have multiple times told them that we're not supposed to do that old program, but it's still being done because the state hasn't come out with saying, hey, this is not appropriate anymore. We need to do something different. But they do have that new program. So I'm trying to push that because it's at least a little more not so past and inappropriate. And it doesn't lead to the whole dancing and inappropriateness for our kids to be dressed up, that kind of stuff.
So that leads to what, you're right, because sometimes people will hear this song and the song is problematic just as a song in itself, but then teachers being as creative and as wanting to be as entertaining as possible will maybe put up a teepee, maybe ask their children to dress up in this case, a Native American costume because they are representing someone else. And that is stereotypical usually and is not appropriate by any means. And so, we're not talking just about the song, but also about the consequences of teaching the song to children and using it in a program. This program is usually used, there are many other songs within this program. It talks about Utah, it talks about miners, it talks about fur trappers, and then there's this one song here. So are there any other comments?
Brenda, is the song recommended in anything that goes along with the core? Why are the teachers using it? Is that the only thing available, or are there recommendations or references to it in the core when the teachers are preparing their programs?
No, there is no reference to it in the core. This is a song that is done by a company who sells prepackaged programs. And they have, all of their songs, the music, the lyrics, they sell it to schools, and then the schools use the songs. And we have looked at all of the songs, and the music teaching artists that I work with just say that the songs in general aren't the very best songs, but in this particular case for us, I'm talking specifically about this song. I think that other people can tackle other parts about fur traders and trappers and all of those, other different songs, but it is a prepackaged program that schools have purchased, and then they just use year after year.
There is that other option, the U for Utah. It's similar, but not on our native part. It is not similar.
Mute.
So what we have done, and but we feel like this is maybe just a Band-Aid rather than a real look at changing. We have shared a couple of songs that the Northwestern Shoshone Nation has given their permission for children to sing. And we have, and so we've offered that. We've offered a couple of other suggestions, but our initiative doesn't consider ourselves, the police in any way. You have more of official voice than we do, other than we work with Native tribes. but or Native nations, and so here is what the BYU Arts Partnership is. I don't know if we're offering, but we are willing to partner with USBE Indian Education Program, and maybe we need to ask to see if there's another song that we can write, that maybe there are Indigenous songwriters that would be willing to write a song that children can sing about the sovereign nations here in Utah. There's that option. Another one is if you have other options that you see, maybe we can, put that together in a form letter and send it out. We just don't know what Title VI coordinators and Chuck's office want to do. And we'd love to help, but we'd love to see Title VI and Chuck's office take the lead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could ask schools or school districts what resources they have with this population. And maybe you can start from there rather than maybe asking them, do you use this? Because other people will know that this is what's being used, and that might just kind of spread the word that this is available. But just ask, what resources do you have in your schools for recognizing Native American people, and that could be shared with the school population, and then go from there and look at national resources that are out there, or like you said, develop something locally within the state that you could use. Find some artists that are appropriate and recognize and respect the populations we're talking about.
We have scoured for resources, and this is where teachers are willing to change. It's just that we don't know what resources to let them know about, because there aren't very many resources that can actually take the place. I mean, I think that there are things that could take the place of this, but I think if we put our heads together, we could actually come up with some, some other alternatives that would be helpful. But right now, there aren't very many resources, and that's why teachers were writing to us. They would email and say, we found that this song, and we don't know if it's appropriate. And so what we will say is that these are what we have found that are problematic with the song, but we haven't said don't sing it, because we're an initiative and not necessarily an official voice.
So Brenda, I'm thinking that maybe a Native artist can be commissioned to write a song, but we need to have the support of some agency, an educational or an Indian related agency, who would help that commission to happen, or help that process to begin, to find the artist, to look for. I know that they were developing some curriculum at the Rio Tinto Museum, and so the idea of it was to find an artist that was willing to develop the curriculum and then do it. So maybe we can find an artist that is interested, but we have to do a search, and put it out there. We're looking for an artist who wants to write a song about Utah, and we need some means to support that artist when that happens. And I don't know where that comes from.
Here's my idea too, is either way, we're gonna have kids inappropriately dancing until we teach the teachers not to do that. We're gonna have that issue.
If I feel like, I always say, we're chipping away at dogma, and that will take time. And so, right now, I do love the idea of of maybe commissioning a music artist, an Indigenous music artist, to help with the song. And then, but what that gives us is it gives us, once the song is released, or we as Indigenous people in Utah can give the ways this song should be used and the do's and don'ts of the song. You know, we can actually say, don't dance to this song. This is the way we as Native people want the song to be sung.
That would be good if they can follow that.
Yeah, teachers are pretty, I think we're getting, they're turning the tide on recognizing that there are things that they need to be aware of and be sensitive to. And one of our guiding principles for our initiative is to always accept the goodwill, and that mistakes will be made, but then once the mistakes are learned from, and they can get better at it.
You're right. But teachers always have a good heart. It's, you know, in my district, I'm trying to push for teacher education because I think that's the only way we're going to get our point across.
Exactly.
Of what's appropriate and what's not. So.
Exactly.
So has there been contact made with the social studies, the people that develop the core curriculum or the standards or whatever, to address, you know, it seems like there are pieces in there, but the cultural sensitivity or the stereotypes or even racism that exists is not addressed, and maybe that's not their job. But it seems like to reach the teachers, they're going by what's in the core, and so if there's inclusiveness in the core about cultural sensitivity and accurate information, maybe that would drive them to search for some more appropriate things.
Yeah, I think that they are searching. It's just that there's very little out there. There are songs, there are things out there, but they are not appropriate.
You had mentioned the Goshu tribe, was it, that you said had put some things out that were permissible to sing?
Yes.
And is that something that we could have access to? Where could we go to find that?
So can you bring up my Google Doc again? So in our letter to different teachers, I just kind of put this letter in. Can you bring up my Google Doc again? So we say we hope this information has been helpful and will help you as you make a choice whether to sing this song or not. We'd like to offer a couple of alternatives that might be used in this song's place. The Northwestern Band, Chuck, can you get your assistant to help put the Google Doc back up? The Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation has given permission for students in Utah to sing 2 of their songs, but either song should not be sung without creating context for the listener. These songs can be found in the following lesson plans. And we have 2 lesson plans that we have done with these songs. And let me see if I can I will put them in here and paste. So I've just pasted the 2. One of them is called Damandoya, and okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay, scroll all the way down. So I've put the 2 lesson plans in the chat. One of them, and it says students are allowed to perform these songs, but please read the following paragraph as part of the performance immediately preceding the student singing, so that anyone listening to the performance receives this information in connection with the song. And this is what the Northwestern Band wanted us to write. You can keep scrolling. It says, not all Northwestern Shoshone songs are appropriate for elementary students to sing. Many of the songs are ceremonial songs or sung for specific reasons or at specific times. However, Patty Timbimbu Madsen, the Cultural and Natural Resource Manager for the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation, has given permission for students to sing this song, Damandoya, or Pengwe Bayanoga. She believes that singing this song will help students to better understand how Northwestern Shoshone people see their surrounding environment. This song is traditionally sung while passing time, perhaps when a Shoshone is outside and sees something that brings this song to mind, like the clouds floating or being near the mountains or streams. We express our gratitude that the Northwestern Shoshone has graciously shared this part of their culture with us, and we will do our best to respectfully sing it. And then we put another option is to use the lesson plan Utah environments through eyes of a Paiute and have students perform creative movement, not imitating native dances, about different aspects of Utah. These are just two alternative suggestions. There are other options available as well. Please reach out if you have any questions. And that's what we have sent out to teachers or whoever has made an inquiry.
Thank you very much for linking that.
So this is what we wanted to bring to you today. And I don't know if you are ready to make decisions or if you have next steps that you're thinking about, but that is what we have been, we just wanted to share with you what we're telling people as they reach out to us. We love the idea of commissioning a song that is reviewed by Indigenous people, and I feel like the Title VI coordinators would be the official voice in this case, but I don't know, because it would be a fairly general song, but it could also there are different aspects of the of Indian life or Native life that would need to be represented, bringing them into the present, showing that there are 8 sovereign nations, that we are thriving, that we were here long before white man came, and that that people are now living on the ancestral lands of these people. And there's so many aspects that we could put into a song that would really be much more appropriate. So are there any comments or next steps that people want to?
Yeah, I think that we can try to deal. I mean, we can probably come up with something, because I think the majority, hopefully, I don't want to twist anybody's arm out there. I think the Title VI have basically the same feeling. It's just, that they like to internalize it, and, giving them a chance, an opportunity to set it in their mind so they can put it on paper. So our next steps may be through the time now, and through January or February, where we could come up with a statement. But I'm hearing 2 things here. One is the writing of the song. It's here, which I think it's something that is well needed. Then I got the other part is to have the song not used in schools. See, my focus right now is the song not be used in schools. With the songwriting, that's up to you guys. That's Brenda, that's your group. You guys can find a good singer and get George Strait or one of those guys to sing a good song like that. But see, I'm more concerned about the song today, not using that song in the fourth grade. That's the reason why I went to go visit these 3 schools face to face, and those three schools, they're in the Alpine School District. Jeannie, that's your group. And they don't use that song. So and I got myself caught into that where I have to go back and do a small presentation, which I don't mind. I don't mind that, because again, it's just giving the flavor of what American Indian culture is. Now, so let's that's where I like to go with this. I think our next meeting, or either a meeting besides having the Title VI, we can probably convene where we could come up with some ideas on how to put the language together. So what do you guys think?
I'm just wondering, Chuck, we brought it to you because we felt like if there was going to be a creation of a song, that we would, I mean, if it was going to be commissioned, we'd love to have it from an entity like USBE, or from Division of Indian Affairs, or
we're in the business of education, not songwriting now, girl. Maybe Division of Indian Affairs would pick up something like that.
Brenda, maybe we could do it through an arts grant.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an arts grant that would be available to help, help with it, and it's directly related because it's music. And the other comment I have is, maybe if you want to have a discussion with people who are interested, you could do a Zoom meeting sometime before the Title VI meeting to talk about more details, and only specifically talk about this project, how you want to move forward. Maybe people would be interested in a committee, in being on a committee.
I would love that. Chuck, can we convene a committee of people who are interested in this song, and so that we can figure out next steps? I love the idea of an arts grant. So I know that you guys were definitely way over time. I do have to, so what I'll do is I'll send, if Chuck will share his listserv of all of the coordinators, I'll send out a Zoom, kind of a doodle poll to see when people could meet. And then we could have a subcommittee talk. Is that something that's doable, Chuck?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We'll get the committee interest from Title VI.
Okay.
I have a quick question on that too. If we form the song and everything, is there a way we can get it to the state, Chuck, and have them say, okay, we're replacing that song with this song?
I think I vaguely remember about maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I had conversation with Kathy Jensen, who's the fine arts coordinator at USBE. And it's just like books. They have to be vetted. And when it's vetted, this is where this could be stopped. Now, it's up to the school districts whether they're going to pay a company to purchase a supplement like this song to use in their schools. USBE can say that, no, this is not on our reading list, our book list, or music list. But the school district have the autonomy to purchase their own material, books, and supplies. See, and that's that it's just like a book that's out there. And I've come across on 2 occasions where our Title III coordinator, our director, she brought the attention to a book that was not to be used, and that book is not being used in a recommendation from USBE. But again, you have the school district have that autonomy to purchase that book as a supplement. See, so That makes
So,
sense here.
yeah, so I think what we'll do is I will send out I will send out an invite to people to, if they want to be on a subcommittee, and then we can start exploring what can be done with this song. I also want to invite you. I'm missing another meeting right now. We have reframed or redesigned the American Indian Resources page with the Utah Education Network, UEN, and we are having a Zoom meeting right now with them, and I will join them, where we are looking at that new page that we have redesigned to make it more authentic and accurate. And we have curated or vetted what is on that page. And we would love Title VI coordinators' input on that. And that meeting is going on right now. And I just put the Zoom link in right here. So Chuck, I'm going to leave and go to that meeting.
Okay.
And we'd love to have anyone that wants to join us right after this meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the next. It's the Urban Indian Center update. Could you guys give an update on that, Penelope? And after that, any Title VI updates that you guys like to share? I know I'm running over time here, so I want to give back some of your time back. Is Penelope here? I think she left. Well, since she left, is there any updates out there in Title VI coordinator sites? Well, if there's not, again, I'd like to thank you guys for attending, and you guys are well appreciated, and I thank you for your time, and have a safe week and a safe holiday.
Chuck?
Oh yeah, I can faintly hear somebody's calling my name. All right, who's calling my name, or is that I'm just hearing things?
It's a spirit.
Chuck,
Okay.
so this is Lillian. I just wanted to say something real quickly.
Sure.
You know, mentions something about Native people worshiping when
Hey, Lillian, if you could,
I mean,
if you could reposition.
I don't think it's worshiping. I think it's respecting.
Yeah, if you could reposition somewhere, you're breaking up really bad.
Yeah, we didn't hear any, but every other word of that.
Oh dear. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to move to a different location. But I'm just thinking with the song, if the group decides to keep the song, but I think there's a ways that people could be educated where they're talking about how Native people worship air, wind, rain, whatever, all the natural elements. There's a lot of teaching that could be done with all of that, because we respect all of that. We respect our natural environment. And in this day and age, when we're talking about climate change, the air, we're suffering from it, so we want clean air. We want our water to be clean.
Yeah.
Natural resources protected, and things like that. So there's just a lot of teaching that could take place if they continue to talk about how we respect all these things. That's one thing that I picked up from there. So anyway, so if there are teachable moments, I think we should take advantage of those moments.
Yeah, I hear you. Yes, I agree with that. Okay. Are there any more updates, comments, thankfulness? Hey. Well, I'll let you guys go again. I thank you for your time, and you guys all have a safe holiday, and we'll talk to you the next time. And the committee wise, I'll get something out there that would we can put something together, that language part. So again, I'd like to thank you, and we'll see you guys later.